Good afternoon. All right, another Sunday. I'll give it a few minutes. Hopefully, we'll have some folks join. There's a thumbs up. Happy Sunday. All right, got some more thumbs up. I will give it a few minutes. Happy Sunday to you too. All right, we are gonna give it a few minutes. Good morning from Southern Cali. Thank you for getting up early to join us. Good afternoon. Happy Sunday to you as well. Happy Sunday. We are running out of July. I think we have one more day in July. This is it. We are more than halfway through this year. Hello, hello. Welcome. All right, I'll kick it off. Thank you all very much for being here. Do my intro. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Let me change my screen. All right, I'm going to kick it off. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jewel Pearson. This is Miss Bohemian Soul TV. This is Creating Home, a tiny house series, and we are about to kick off the What's Your Question segment of this series every Sunday, or at least I try every Sunday to be here to offer live content, and I alternate between this segment, the What's Your Question, where I'm answering frequently asked tiny house questions, and then the conversations that I have, the conversations on intimate spaces where I'm speaking to someone in or around the tiny house movement. As I introduce myself, I like to say that I built a kinda fancy tiny house in 2015, and since that time I have shared my journey to hopefully inspire others who are interested in the movement. I do offer coaching and consultations to help others in their tiny house journey, and you will be able to find links to schedule with me in the video description below this video once the video goes live. And as I'm doing all of that, I try to serve up a lot of representation in this movement along the way. I want us to see ourselves represented in this movement. I want us to have a space where we can talk about the things that impact us as we're participating in the movement, as we're interested in the movement, because oftentimes our journeys are different and we need to have that space to talk through that. It is my intent to build figurative and literal community that is inclusive and accessible. And if you find this information helpful, the video helpful, I hope that you'll like it, you'll share it, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on the notifications so that you'll know when content is available. All right, that's my intro. And I am grateful that you all are here this morning, this afternoon. Hello, Philadelphia. Welcome. Robert has gotten crunk already. Good morning, Robert. Good afternoon, Robert. Good day, everybody. Thank you all very much for being here. I don't really have a planned topic for discussion, and you all have to excuse me. Some mosquitoes bit me this morning as I was out walking. and they were not that kind, so my elbow is on fire. Um, but I was saying I don't have a planned conversation. I am not at home. I have been traveling just about the entire month of July. I have enjoyed it immensely. Um, I am not at home still. I will be home tomorrow evening, and then not exactly sure what my schedule. My birthday is next Saturday, so I'm trying to decide whether I'll be at home or I'll travel somewhere. Um, Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Um, all right, Robert. Thank you for joining. Have a good weekend. Robert is signing off, but I thank you for joining. Um, so I have been traveling. Like I was saying, next Saturday is my birthday. Birthdays have significantly become more important to me since 2007. 2007, I've shared this a couple of times. I ended up in the hospital 2 weeks before my 40th birthday. And I ended up in the hospital with blood clots in both of my lungs. And very unexpected. I thought I had pulled a muscle, and I was doing all of the things except taking care of myself. I even woke up in the middle of the night, and I'd had the severe pain in my chest since kind of Tuesday or so of that week, and had just kind of been pushing through it, going to the office. I thought I had pulled the muscle working out. And then I woke up. My intent had actually been on that Saturday, if I still didn't feel better, I was going to take a muscle relaxer. And then because God looks out for fools and babies, somewhere 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, that morning I woke up and I couldn't breathe. And it was like someone was sitting on my chest. And I just could not breathe. And so I drove myself to the emergency room. I'm in there telling them I've got to pull muscle. I need a muscle relaxer. I'm telling the doctors how to do their jobs because I had so many things to do. And long story short, the doctor pushed and he was like, "Yeah, it does sound like you have a pulled. It sounds like you have a pulled muscle, but let us do some MRIs and let us do some x-rays and stuff." And so then they came back, and it was a lady, and I only saw her the one time as she came into my room. She didn't end up being my full-time doctor, but she came in the room and she said, "You have bunches of blood clots in both of your lungs." And she said most people die from one blood clot. And she said, "And it sounds like you've had these blood clots for quite some time." And she said, "If I were you, I'd lay very still until we can get some medicine in you." And I was stunned, like that was her delivery. But I was also scared. I was in there by myself. I was terrified, but I knew that she was serious, and I couldn't even cry. She said, "Lay still," and I'm gonna lay still. But I ended up in the hospital for a week. And then after that, I was on blood thinners for um, 9 months, having to go to the doctor every day to get my blood levels checked, get my medicine adjusted. And that all happened like 2 weeks before. It was exactly 2 weeks before my birthday. And I had no idea. I don't know why my phone has decided to start playing. I had no idea 2 weeks before my 40th birthday how close I was to not seeing my 40th birthday. And so since that time, um, it was like a revelation to me in how I moved. And like I said, I was in there telling the doctor what to do. I had, a to-do list, um, and it was a really a pivotal point for me in understanding, um, always having an understanding, even prior to that, of the importance of the value of life, but there was more of an understanding for me of paying attention to each individual day and trying to be in that moment. And interestingly enough, in 2014, I was in London, and same exact day, I was crossing the street in London. London, they drive on the opposite side of the road, crossing the street, but jaywalking, which was what I wasn't supposed to be doing. Jaywalking and looking in the opposite direction because I was expecting cars to be coming from, it was a one-way street, so I was expecting cars to be coming from the opposite direction. So I was looking in the wrong direction, stepped out in the street, and almost got hit by a bus, a motorcycle, a double-decker bus, motorcycle, and some cars. I remember the bus. I can remember the bus driver's face. And I kind of just was jumping back and forth across the lanes because they were coming to a screeching halt and they were pissed off. Um, but it was an absolute mistake, but it was very close. Like I could see drivers' faces. And again, it was the exact same day, 7 years later. So July the 21st has always had some significant, has since that time has had significance for me because it's like every twice on the same day, 7 years later, seven is an important number. The realization that or again the reminder that you are this close to not being here, and you still get to be here, and what are you going to do from this point forward? And so my birthdays, it's the 2 weeks before and my birthday have become more important, not just because it's a celebration of a birthday, but more so because um, I recognize the opportunities that I've the grace, and that's the grace that I have been given to still be able to be here. And so that's the thought process that I always kind of take into another year. And so I think I've been sharing with you all that I feel like I have been in a growth period for some time now and trying to figure out what that looks like. And in growth, you experience growing pains, and I think everybody is familiar with that. Absolutely, God has a way of making us sit down and reassessing our lives. Absolutely, absolutely. And so, trying to figure out for August what that looks like, because I do need to um, refocus, get myself back on track for some things. My fitness routine has kind of gotten off, not kind of, has gotten off track because I've been traveling all of July, getting back to my meditation practice, and then um, figuring out the things that I need to be doing and the things that I want to do. I keep talking about my book and focusing on that, the book that I want to, the coffee table book that I want to create, and the work I want to do around creating a community. And so the thing I posted on Instagram this morning, the quote I posted was about showing up for yourself and pouring into yourself the same way that you pour into others. And that is the one of the things for me that I constantly have to think about, because if someone else, a friend or someone else had come to me and they were like, I want to write this book and I need your help, the book would have been written by now. Because that's how I show up for others. And I don't always show up for myself in that same way. And that is something that I know I need to work on and to figure out, and to constantly show up for myself the way I show up for others. And I think that's really important. Um, I hear a lot of people say that they don't show up for themselves, and I've talked about that before, kind of investing in yourself as much as you invest in others, and believing in yourself as much as you believe in others. Um, Feeling like you deserve the same love, the same self love that you give to others. And and being okay with pouring it into yourself when you, one of the things that I know I think about a lot is pouring into others and not necessarily getting that back, and the deficit that you feel there, or sometimes even resentment. But refocusing that in understanding I can only control me. So if I'm, in order to not get to that place of resentment, I have to control how I pour into others. And then I also have to control and not have the expectation that because I'm pouring into to others that they're going to pour into me, and using that energy to pour into myself and to support myself the way that I know I support others. And so that is absolutely that is something that we have to focus on, that I have to focus on. Um, Viola has a testimony, blood clots as well. Glad you're here to join us. Um, we have a hater in the warm up for Team Virgo Leo season. Okay, I was kind and let that message share across the broadcast. We'll let you have that, Rosalind. Thank you. But anyway, thank you so much. Um, but so that's where I am. That is, thank you, Viola. I'm happy you're here. I I got some work to do. And so that's the thing that the work that I know I need to do, and making myself sit in the uncomfortable space and do the work is where I am headed as I get to this next birthday. So um, that's where I am, and that's what I'm doing. Um, I really want to figure out. I do work in corporate America. I'm a product manager, and I really want to focus my time in mindset on tiny house stuff and housing stuff. And I want to, the housing advocacy work, and um, that's the stuff I feel passionate about. And I really want to figure out how to segue myself into a space that allows me to do this work full time, and so that it is covering the expenses I needed to cover, so that I can pivot out of corporate America and do this work that brings me joy and brings me passion, that I can tie into tiny houses. I can talk tiny houses in my sleep, and it's the thing. Um, Community and advocating for tiny houses and advocating for people to recognize the opportunity for home ownership that tiny houses bring, and getting to home ownership quicker, especially for communities, Black communities, the communities of color who still struggle with home ownership from the traditional standpoint, and um, seeing this happen for the unhoused. And um, as I say it, I think every week we continue looking at housing in the same ways over and over again. And it is really the definition of insanity, because it's not improving. Year after year, we remain last in home ownership achievement. The number of unhoused grows, the number of the affordable housing crisis is growing. And there the doing the same thing isn't working. And so how do we, and again, I always say, I don't say that tiny houses are the answer, but it's part of the answer for doing something different and thinking outside of the box. And so that is the work that I want to do, and I want to do it full time. And so I'm trying to um, figure out what that looks like and focus my energies on making that happen. I was listening to a podcast this morning that was just really reinforcing the idea of seeing yourself um, seeing yourself, working yourself in future, seeing yourself as you want to be in the future, and working in the mode of that future self. And so that's the energy that I'm trying to pull all together so that I can move myself into those directions. And I hope that if you all have some things that you're working on, that you'll also focus on that, or refocus if there's a need to, so that you're pouring into yourself and supporting yourself like you support and pour into others. All right. I don't have outside of just that share, that long share. I don't have any designated tiny house topic. I did say that I wanted to try to spend Sundays in community. I still get a lot of questions, emails of questions of people who are trying to achieve tiny house, trying to get join the journey and figure out what that looks like for them. They have questions, and I keep inviting them to join us on Sundays. This is where I answer the free questions. This is where I spend time um, in community, sharing stories and answering questions that you all have. And so I'm hoping that someone has joined that has some questions that I can answer in the chat. I don't see anything right now. Viola is sharing. Yeah, I end up being the designated driver because um, when I'm trying to work out, drinking just is counterproductive, and the older I get, it just takes so long to recover. So I might as well be the designated driver. Glad you're here. All right. Nobody has a question. I thank y'all for joining on Sundays just to be here in community. Let's see if I see anything. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I am, like I said, traveling. Hi, Teresa. Good afternoon. I will be home tomorrow and deciding what I'm going to do. I miss my house. I don't know if I've spent a whole week in my house the month of July. Um, but um, I also, as I'm traveling, one of the things that is like a conflict for me, because I adore my house. I still struggle with being so far um, out of the city. I'm in a beautiful location. I feel safe in that location, but I still struggle. I miss sidewalks and things, and movement, and just the conveniences of being able to get out and go for a walk through a neighborhood on the sidewalks. And so those are the things that I try to figure out how to continue balancing um, them. And one of the challenges, and why I advocate for tiny houses should be allowed in urban spaces. And so that is I'm often reminded of that as I travel, and recognize that I do miss my tiny house, but I also enjoy being more in urban spaces. All right, here's a question. How much does it take annually to maintain a tiny home? I don't have a number off of the top of my head. Um, I'm trying to think of annual maintenance. I can't think of anything I have to do manually. Like I've talked about the first year of tiny house living, as you're dealing with infrastructure, installing infrastructure. That's the the most expensive year, and infrastructure, installing water, your water lines, your electrical lines, um, and um, winterizing your house, making sure that if you're in an area that you deal with cold and snow, wrapping the house so that you're winterizing it. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, there's a video, and I'll share the link um, in the description for winterizing your house, and that the things that you do there. So that first year is where you incur the most expense, or the first year, or each time that you relocate. If you relocate and you have to deal with that infrastructure cost in the new relocation, it's going to be the expense, the major expense. But after that, there's not a lot of annual maintenance outside of if you're on grid and you're paying, your standard electric bill, or if you're paying for water, internet, the standard monthly bills. There is nothing I can think of that I have to do annually. I've been in my house for 8 years. I've painted the exterior twice, but that's not an annual thing. I think I've done that. Well, I've done it twice now in 8 years. So maybe the first time I did it, I think it was like year three, because I was actually changing the color of my house. It was originally brown, and I was changing it to black. And that was 2018-ish. And then I just painted again. And so um, that has been an expense. But there's nothing I can think of that I have to do annually for the tiny house. Um, in the beginning, as I was winterizing my house, I was going through the process of wrapping it with kind of a temporary wrap um, as fall would hit, and then I'd take it off and do that again the next fall prior to winter. And then I realized that was not conducive to big common sense, and so I came up with a solution that I could put on once and it would just remain. And so that isn't even an annual expense. And again, I do talk about wrapping in one of the videos, and I'll share it. um, but I cannot think of anything else that I am doing annually. um, all right, here's another question. Hi, Kimberly. Welcome, Kimberly. Would you live in a tiny house in England, France, or Italy? Um, would I live in a tiny house if England, France, or Italy were on my list to live in? Absolutely would. One of the things that we have to consider is that the U.S. is the place that has the big houses. England has big houses, but for the most part, so many other countries live smaller anyway as the standard. And so that's why they kind of look at us crazy as we talk about tiny houses, because they've been living smaller anyway. So it's not necessarily an uncommon thing for them. England, France, or Italy, none of those are on my places I want to live. I want to live in um, countries that are predominantly brown. If I leaving the United States, I want to live with somewhere where the global majority, the brown people, are predominant. So my focus is more on like countries in the Caribbean. Plus, I also want to be near water and in sunshine. But if those were places on my to live list, absolutely, I'd live in a tiny house in those areas. I just really, as I'm traveling and staying in larger spaces, I just recognize that I really have no need for um for large spaces. Other than so now, and my friend Kimberly, who just joined, can attest to this. Now, I do look at large spaces and sometimes miss having large spaces simply because I want to decorated. And I miss I miss going to World Market and places like that to spend money on decor. So I do sometimes think I'd like a big space just to decorate it, or I'm in a space and I'd really like to decorate the space. But other than that, the desire to decorate it, I have no real interest in big spaces. So I can always live tiny. Linda is saying I have some interesting tattoos. Well, thank you. I'm gonna I'm gonna take interesting as a compliment. But thank you. I'm assuming that's the way you meant it. So thank you. Um, have you thought about making a smaller version of your home to take with you? Some of you may know I have had this travel trailer sitting um, outside my tiny house. And again, I'm not at home, but I've had this travel trailer since I think 2018. And it has been on my to-do list to renovate it. But every time I get ready to renovate it, something else has required my funds for it. Actually, Vaughn and Jay, who I've spoken to Vaughn twice. Vaughn was just on a couple of weeks ago, talking about her she shed. They have a van that they live in part time, and so they are coming down um, in a week and a half, and so we're going to. It is time. The baby um, travel trailer is going to get worked on. So they're coming down to assess it, and we had a conversation earlier this week to talk about what I want to do. So they're coming down, and then I'm going to take it up to them. They live in Ohio, so then I'm going to take it up to them. So I will have not a wooden structure, but the travel trailer is going to be the smaller version that I am going to work on. Are there land cooperatives or land trusts that are tiny house friendly in Carolina with people of color? Interesting question. I just had a conversation with Carrie from the Black Family Land Trust Friday, and I have reached out to them before a couple. It was actually in 2020, right after we got out of quarantine, trying to work some synergies around tiny house cooperatives, et cetera, et cetera. And so she and I owe her some information, but she and I are trying to start those conversations again to find opportunity. And so stay tuned. I am hoping to make some synergies happen there. And it's interesting that you asked that question because I did just talk to the Black Family Land Trust, and they are in North Carolina on Friday. And so I am working on that. I'm also working on that. It's on my to-do list. So I have the cooperative communities initiative that I had started where I'm matching tiny house owners with property owners, farmers, landowners for parking, not for purchasing land, but for parking opportunities. And the list has kind of gotten out of control because it's a manual process where I dump it into an Excel spreadsheet and I do all the communication, et cetera, et cetera. So on my to-do list is to work with Fiverr. I don't know if you all know Fiverr. Fiverr is a kind of, I guess, an app where you can go and find people who have different skill sets and you can hire them. So I have on my to-do list to find someone who works with databases to help me figure out how to kind of automate that process because the manual process is a lot and more than I have time to kind of focus on, and I've been neglecting it for some time. So I am going to relaunch that very soon, and that is connecting. Um, and I'll do a relaunch and notify the community once it is up and running again efficiently. And that again is a matching. And this is not just focused on North Carolina, but throughout the country, matching people who have land and are interested in allowing people to park their tiny houses on it. And the um, mine has an emphasis on Black people and people of color from the safety perspective. And I started that initiative after I had to relocate my house twice because of problems with racism and safety. And so the focus is Not saying that people of other races can't participate, um, but the focus is on people of color, Black people, having places to park their tiny houses for safety. So thank you for that question. Um, oh, thank you, Kimberly. That's why you can pay your friends to come to your lives and support you and say cool things. Latasha is saying Latasha is saying the same. Just go into interior design. That'll solve that so that I don't have to have big houses. I don't have, well, I feel like I have the skill set. I don't have the credentials. Sometimes people want you to have the credentials. I have done some work for people now, as an aside for interior design. I think my struggle in interior design is I have a style that I like and I can work within that style. And if somebody has a different style, I don't know that I can help them. But anyway, that's where I am. Thank you, Teresa. I hope I get to do that too. And I'm thinking you're talking about the things that I have on my list to do. Thank you. Yes, I can do some camping, glamping. That's right, because I'm not doing the real camping where you kind of, where I feel like you might be in the struggle. I'm doing some glamping, and my travel trailer will represent that. You're absolutely welcome. Um, Teresa is saying my cousin may be able to help with that. Are you talking about, if you're talking about the database, if you have it, please reach out if you have somebody that can help me with that. I would prefer to um, pay somebody that comes recommended if possible. Um, Good morning from Covington, Georgia. Do you have any matching partners in the state of Georgia? Yes, there are some people I know on the list in Georgia. And so once it is, I'll drop the list, the form to the list right now. If you want to um, complete the information on the form right now, just know that it is going to be revamped. And so there's a real possibility you'll have to complete the information again. Um, and there's also a possibility that there might be a small cost associated with it because running things isn't free. And so just I'll put that out there that there might be a small cost associated with having access to this database. But it is, I do know that I have folks there in Georgia. Okay, so Teresa, you're saying it is somebody on the database. So please, yes. Um, Reach out and let me know. My contact information is will be in the video. So please let me know if you have a contact that can work on a database for me. Good afternoon, C. Welcome. All right, let me see if there's some more questions. Um, I appreciate y'all. Y'all always keep the conversation going. I come on here and I'm like, I don't really have nothing to talk about, so this is gonna be quick. And then we end up being in some good community conversation. So I always appreciate y'all. Um, What else? What else can we talk about? Y'all have some more questions for me? Um, let's see what we have. Anybody working on a tiny house? Anybody working on something that they're excited about that they're focused and refocusing on? Like I said, I need to do. Um, my friend on Instagram, she's the Afro minimalist, is starting a 5 a.m. accountability group for writers. Um, and I really need, as sad as it makes me, I really need a 4 a.m. group. I have a 5:30 boot camp that I try to, a 5:30 boot camp I try to attend. So 5 o'clock for the Writers Club is a little bit late for me, and that makes me sad. Um, So I'm thinking I need to be up at 4, but I'm trying to figure it out. An accountability group. What are y'all working on? Um, Judith is Robert Robert, before he left, because he had to go, he said he had a lot going on, but he did he did kick it off with letting me know that I was beautiful. So he did share some joy before he left. He just said he had a lot going on. So Judith, he did grace us with some Robert humor. Um, Hi, Shar. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, I appreciate you. All right, so Kimberly is asking some questions. Are there any downs to being a tiny house owner? Isolations, inconveniences. Um, I have, and thank you, because I also have a video about the things I dislike about tiny house living. So I'm going to share that link. So thank you that for that. I'll share that. The thing that I there for me, there is no downs to tiny house living. My bonus being that I designed my house for me, so I have been able to live in my home successfully for 8 years because I absolutely adore my house and it works for me. And then I've had the opportunity to expand it with my sunroom and my screened-in porch. So my home is something that I just absolutely adore. The down, and I've always said this as a down, is the fact that they aren't accepted in areas, and so that you have to, if you decide that you're going to do tiny house living right now, it's kind of that gray area where you need to have a plan A through Z in case you have to relocate it, which can be unnerving for some people. I always say tiny house living right now isn't for the faint of heart. And the other inconvenience is, as and Kimberly knows, I'm way out in the boonies, and it is isolating. Um, I do wish I could be. I enjoy the privacy that I have. I enjoy um, the alone time I have, because I've shared I'm very much introverted, but I also want to have community closer than what I have. Like, I'm 45 minutes outside of Charlotte. There is a small city where I'm located, but it's not a city that um, I don't want to say patronize, but not an area where I have community. And so community for me and friends for me, it's like 45 minutes outside, or in services. All of my services are 45 minutes away. But I try to look at that as the gratefulness, being grateful that I can live in my home and I have a car and gas money that I can go to my services. But to me, that is the downside. I think most people would say the fact that there is a challenge in having placement is the downside of tiny house living. I do see people on social media speaking to small spaces and keeping the space clean, and they'll often say this is the thing that people who live in tiny houses don't talk about, how hard it is to keep the space clean, because it's such a small space and it can easily get out of hand. That's not my journey, because I've always been the person that keeps my space clean, small space. So that's not my journey. And again, I designed my house to work for me. So I have the walk-in closet. Like, I needed to be able to still function as I do in it did in a traditional house, and so I designed my house that way. So I don't have that as a challenge. When I come out of town, of course, my house is a little messed up until I unpack my suitcase and get all of the things organized. But because I am an organized person, that's not a big challenge for me. So my only down is location. Having a place to keep it, or to live in it. Um, Kimberly Cup coming with the questions. What are the joys and awesome experiences of being a tiny house dweller? For me, it is the opportunity for intentional living. As you know, I have been gone the entire month of July traveling. I have visited friends and family. I have traveled with you. Um, I have house sat for a couple of people. I'm house sitting now. The flexibility for me to be able to, and also because I do work from home, that also adds to it. The flexibility to be able to move about, and I consider it liberation. There's a freedom for me in the fact that um, my expenses are such that I have the opportunity to be a little freer, and to and in years past I've been able to spend time with family, supporting them through different things, and I haven't necessarily always had that opportunity, or the opportunity to know that as I'm trying to pivot into working in more into housing outside of my current corporate job, that I don't have to necessarily focus on what the salary will be, because I don't necessarily have a number that I have to hit. Obviously, I need to, or I want to be in a good position, but I can make some different decisions because my responsibility is different, as and my tiny house has afforded me that. So that's a major joy for me. Um, let's see. February sellers welcome. Are you familiar with a newly created company called named Discount Lots? I'm considering buying a lot in Georgia prior to purchasing my tiny home. I am not familiar with them at all. And I always say to everyone here in um, dealing with building a tiny house, working with a tiny house builder, um, a general contractor, whatever you're doing, do your due diligence, all of the research, ask for references, make sure you have a solid contract, make sure you're not giving um, more than a small deposit before you have whatever you are supposed to have. I keep hearing of people who are paying a lot of money up front for services or something that they're expecting, and then at the end of it, somebody has some money and they're out of whatever they were supposed to have, the service, the product, etc. Um, I don't believe in doing that, and I've obviously gotten burned doing that type of stuff. But you should not be giving any more than a small deposit for a service until the work is fully complete to your satisfaction, or until you have the product and the product is complete to your satisfaction. So I'm not familiar with them, but do your due diligence in researching and asking for methods, for references. Um, Kimberly said, "I'm very neat, organized, and methodical." That would be me. That is that is why I am that is why product management makes sense to me, because I am organized and methodical. Thank you. Hey, Crystal. Happy Sunday to you. Thank you for joining. I appreciate Crystal. Crystal is, I think Crystal, is it 2 years you've been married now? So Crystal is always, she reminds me of the newlyweds who always reference in husband, and I love it for her. So thank you for joining. I hope you're having a great Sunday. Yes, Kimberly, financial flexibility, that for me is important, for within my tiny house journey, and that was one of the big things that I saw for this journey, as my daughter was young and as a single mom, and I kept saying, once I get her where she needs to be, I really just want to be irresponsible. And that is it. My vision of irresponsibility was absolutely financial flexibility, because at that time, and for so much of that journey, I was, you know, managing to the penny, and there was a lot of grace afforded me in the fact that I'd be busted. Like, I don't even know how I'm getting ready to manage this next week, um, and go to the mailbox, and there would be a refund check or something that was unexpected, but in the mailbox, and would get me through. And I was always very, very grateful for that grace, but also wanted to be in um, a place where I could be irresponsible and not have to be in that place of managing to the penny and being in those spaces. Um, okay, Crystal is saying 3 years on August 11th. Happy married in spirit, not by government. Hey, that's the paper doesn't make it work. So, happy anniversary to you. Coming up. Congratulations to you. All right. Okay. Um, it's Jay Nicole. I'm new here and I really want to buy a tiny home. How would I go about land and finding out where it's okay to put a tiny home? Welcome. I'm happy you're here. I'm going to drop you some links. There are two videos where I have talked about finding parking for tiny houses. So there are two videos. I'm going to drop the links in the description. Um, the West Coast, and so a high level answer to that question is that the West Coast is a little more open to tiny houses, allowing tiny houses. They allow tiny houses as accessory dwelling units, which are and I'm going to drop a link. My guest last week, we were talking about accessory dwelling units. Those are the houses in the backyard. And in several cities in California will allow you to place a tiny house on wheels in the backyard as an accessory dwelling unit. So the West Coast is a lot friendlier to tiny houses. There are tiny house communities, and I can drop a link to some of the communities I'm aware of in the video description. And then um, outside of that, finding somewhere in there are so many areas where tiny houses are not allowed. So the process in finding land is depending on where you're located, having and the decisions about whether tiny houses are allowed or not are made at the city and county level. So it is a matter of understanding what the rules are for the area that you're interested in. So asking or looking on the city, the county's website to see if they already have rules in place around tiny houses. If they don't, and if they don't have that information, calling. And the videos, again, where to place a tiny house, I kind of talk about how to call, what you should be asking, not sharing all of your information. And then there's a decision of making a decision of if they don't allow them, whether you're still going to try to proceed in that gray area and find a location anyway. And I never encourage somebody to do something that's not necessarily legal, but sometimes you do what you got to do. Um, and the process then for looking for land can be finding someone who has enough property that will allow you to place your house in their backyard. Obviously, not a neighborhood with an HOA. But again, though the videos where to place a tiny house, there are two of them, go into um, a lot of detail on that process. And so Crystal is telling me to advertise myself. So, and I do offer consultations if you want to have a one-on-one consultation. I absolutely do offer consultations and can help you navigate that. And the links to schedule will be in this video. But you'll check out those two videos. I do talk a lot about placement of tiny houses. And I also, if you replay this video, I don't know if you were here in the beginning, I also was talking about the cooperative communities and the work that I'm trying to do with the Black Family Land Trust. So I'm always trying to navigate that space. So I hope that answered it. There's plenty of information here to talk through that. Um, Thank you, friend. Friend wants me to make sure you all remember that I was featured in Essence this July August issue. So thank you very much for that shout out. Sophia is saying owning your land, tiny house or home that was built without much help from banks give you much more control and financial freedom. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Um, Crystal, I'm happy that you're happy. That's important to me. And I'm enjoying watching you be happy. So congratulations. Um, all right. We are 5 minutes from one. We've been here, well, one my time, Eastern Standard Time. I have been on with you all for an hour. Every Sunday when I think I'm gonna sit here um and not have anything to talk about, I we end up with some good conversation. Robin Smith, considering the long wait time with some builders, which comes first, getting the house or the parking space first? Um, it depends on, again, I say tiny house living right now is not for the faint of heart. So most areas don't allow tiny houses. So you kind of want to do both of them concurrently, is my best answer. As I was building my tiny house, I was looking for a place to park it because you don't want to, and I might even say finding the parking location first would be important to do, but knowing that if you find the parking location, you will likely need to secure it. So that might look like paying for rent for that parking space while your home is being built just to secure the location. Um, and again, I will encourage you to click on the videos that I'm going to share if you haven't already of me talking through where to place a tiny house. There are two of the videos. I'll share the links in the video description. But securing the location is one of the bigger challenge, even with, I think the as I was aware of it, the wait time for tiny house builders was like about 4 month wait time. I would probably say look for a location and ensure you have the location, and maybe doing both concurrently. But um, if you if you're not going to be in a tiny house community, or you're not in an area where they actually allow tiny houses, there's some risk that you're going to need to be willing to assume, in knowing that there is the possibility that you may have to relocate your home. Um, it's not the end of the world. It is stressful, but it is doable. And I keep saying I've lived in my home for 8 years now, over 8 years, and so I try to be an example to say that it's possible. I want to be that example to you all. So um, watch those two videos. And as Crystal reminded me to say, I do offer consultations if you want to have some one-on-one conversations. Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate you too. I swear I appreciate all of y'all. Thank you, Teresa. Um, Absolutely. There is some independence, some flexible, financial flexibility, location flexibility. There's a whole bunch of flexibility. Viola, thank you. I've enjoyed this time with you as well. Crystal, that's going to be beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, I appreciate you all. As if I had some money, I would hire Crystal as my hype person, my admin. She's always looking out for me, and I appreciate that. Crystal attended my very first workshop that I kicked off in DC, and I'm gonna forget what year it was. It's been a while, and that's I've known Crystal now for several years, and um, my workshop was fabulous. As I pour into myself, I will say I poured into my workshop, and it was important to me as I kicked off workshops because I had attended a workshop. My the work When I was building, I attended a workshop, and the workshop that I attended that I paid good money for, I realized was more of a sales pitch to for that specific company, and they weren't giving all of the information that was available. And I also recognized that the workshops that were in existence didn't speak to the challenges that people of color, Black people, people of color will have in placement. And so I wanted to offer different conversations. And so that's how I prepared the workshop. And it was banging, y'all. At some point, I do offer recorded workshops for sale. I do have to update my site to represent those. But at some point, I might do some workshops again. We'll see. But that's how I met Crystal at my very first one. Good day. Good day. Thank you very much for the birthday wishes. February is asking how would I contact you to schedule a consultation. Give me like 15 minutes after I end this, and or you can go to another video. The link to schedule with me and contact me is always in the video. So you can give me 15 minutes and it'll be in this video description, or you can just you should be able to click on any of the other videos there and you'll be able to contact me for a consultation. All right. I thank you all very much for joining me this Sunday. As always, I appreciate the community, the conversation. I really, really, really do appreciate you all. And I hope everyone has a great Sunday. And I am going to do my closeout. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a great week. Again, this has been the What's Your Question segment in the Creating Home, a Tiny House series. There are 2 segments in this series where I'm answering frequently asked questions in the What's Your Question segment, or the Conversations on Intimate Spaces, where I'm spending time with people in and around the tiny house movement and hopefully sharing some information there that is important to you all to help you navigate the journey, understand financial wealth building, et cetera, et cetera. So, February, thank you, February. February says, she heard me speak in Georgia. Thank you. I appreciate that. Kimberly, thank you. Have a great day. I appreciate you all. Very welcome, Crystal. Thank you very much. Next week should be a conversation on intimate spaces with somebody. I haven't booked that guest yet, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it do what we do. But I want you all to have a great Sunday. Thank you all very much for joining me. Please remember that if this video was helpful to you, that you like it, you share it, and tell your friends about it. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so that you'll know when content is available. All right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining me this Sunday. Take care.